Hey guys, in this video we're going to learn how to solve by taking the square root. So when we're solving a quadratic, so quadratic is anything that has a polynomial that has, 2 as the highest exponent, or the highest degree is 2 plus. So let me just write the format for a quadratic. So this is the standard form of a quadratic. So standard form of a quadratic. Perfect. But when we want to solve by taking the square root, which is a special case used when you're trying to solve a quadratic or find an x value, you want to make sure that you don't have a b value. So a bx value. You can only use the square root method when you have ax squared plus c. So use square root. And there's another part to the square root method. So you have to make sure that the a value and the c value over here and here, they can be squared to give you whole numbers. So what does that mean? So when we have numbers like 81, x squared plus, let's say, 16. These numbers, so the a value, which is over here, let's use a different color. So this is the a value, and this is the c value. So both of these values, you can take the square root of them and get a whole number. So the square root of 81, that gives you 9, which is a whole number. And when you take the square root of 16, the c value, you get a whole number, which is 4. So make sure your a and c values, when you take the square root of them, you get a whole number. So let's dive into some examples. So let's say you have x squared equals 9. All you have to do is get rid of that squared, this 2, in the exponent. And the only way you can do that is by taking the square root on both sides. So x equals 3. So this is actually half of the answer. And what I mean by that is we're missing the plus and the minus 3. Think about it. If x was 3, 3 squared would be 9. But negative 3 squared is also 9, because negative 3 times negative 3, that gives us positive 9. So we have two answers, positive and negative, when we're dealing with squared numbers or square root numbers. So the answer for this question over here would be that x equals both positive and negative 3. Let's look at another example. So x squared minus 5 equals 31. Start off by isolating the x. So we can do that by adding 5 to both sides. So x squared equals 36. And then to get rid of this 2, we have to take the square root on both sides. Square root. So x equals not just 6, but positive and negative 6. So make sure you remember that. And our third example, which is 2x squared plus 8 equals 26. Isolate the x by subtracting 8 on both sides. So 26 minus 8 is 18. So 18 equals 2x squared. And then divide both sides by 2. You're going to get x squared equals 9. To get rid of this 2 in the exponent, all we're going to do is take the square root on both sides, and that gives us x equals plus or minus 3. Okay. You're not always going to get perfect squares when you're solving by taking the square root. And it really helps if they are. But if you don't have an equation like this, where this equates to a graph then you may use the square root method. And let me show you a couple examples of that. So let's say we have x squared plus 7 equals 14. So we subtract 7 on both sides, and we get that x squared equals 7. To get rid of the squared, we square root both sides. And we don't get a whole number from the root 7. And that's okay because we're not trying to get a function for a graph. So when we're looking at something like this, that's when we're looking at a graph. Whereas here, we're just solving in these functions over here. And over here, we are solving for x, like we're solving for a number, not for a function. Let's look at another example. Let's say we had 4x squared equals 32. We isolate by dividing 4 on both sides. X squared equals 8. And then taking the square root of that, we can't simplify further, or actually we can't, sorry. So x equals square root of 8. So let's simplify this. So coming here to our tree diagram method, 2 times 4 is 8. And then we can circle this, 2 and 2. We know that there's a 2 over here. So we have to group them in pairs of 2. 1 gets canceled. This 2 over here comes on the outside. This 2 over here goes on the inside of the radical sign. And don't forget your positive and negative signs. And that's what x equals for this question.